Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's overview of Bradford's family program. My name is Christine Ferguson. I work for Bradford Health Services in program development, and the family program is one of our special programs I work fairly closely with. It is my honor to introduce Tim Hilton. He is the facilitator for the family program. We just wanted to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about what this program entails, the value of it, and just give you a feel for the service that we do offer in addition to the treatment programs we offer for the individuals themselves. So Tim, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, good morning, Chris, and thank you for doing this. I'm a very big believer in what we do in our family program. I think it brings tremendous benefit both to the patients of Bradford and to their families. And so any exposure we can get, anything we can do to help people know this resource is available, I think is absolutely wonderful. So thank you for taking the time to organize this.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So Tim, for our audience, can you explain why it's so important to the individual's recovery to have their family involved?
Absolutely. I think the simplest answer for that is because it improves success rates. The last statistics I saw indicate that when families participate in the family program, the statistical probability of success for those patients basically doubles.
Wow.
Simply put, things are just going to work better if everyone's on the same page. When everyone understands what the problem is, when everyone understands relatively what the solution looks like for that individual. And I think there's also a component that when individuals come through the family program and they begin to gain an understanding of the disease, how it's affected that individual, it allows a platform for the family to start letting go of some of their own pain and anger and resentment and frustration. And it just creates a better family dynamic and a healthier environment for an addict to get sober in.
Excellent. Wow. So can you tell us a little bit about the information that you cover in the family program?
Sure. Well, I think our first and foremost intent is to inform.
Okay.
We want to inform. Initially in the program, our first objective is to inform the families about the disease of addiction. We use that term a lot, disease, and I think some people hear it and think, oh, well, it's a disease. But then there's also a lot of people that hear it and maybe don't fully buy into that concept. This is actually a physical disease. I can tell you initially I did not. I thought it was some kind of made up mythical disease. I thought it was something that treatment centers said to help the patients feel better about themselves, or maybe even it was a justification to charge people for treatment. Turns out I was entirely wrong. After doing years of research and speaking to a lot of really intelligent people, I've been able to formulate a strong understanding of the disease, how it works, and why it's called a disease. So the first thing I want to do when facilitating the program is I want to help families understand that this isn't about your loved one being bad. This isn't about not having enough willpower. It's not about whether or not they love you or not. This is about an actual disease, a disease that in fact affects virtually every function in the human brain. It literally alters the individual's judgment ability. It alters their emotional perceptions, their ability to emotionally process through what's going on. It affects their ability to emotionally attach to others. And it primarily reprograms the brain into believing drugs and alcohol are necessary for life in the same way that, say, food or water or sleep are necessary for life. So I think my first emphasis is always to help families understand your loved one's not bad. It's not that they don't love you. They've become sick. And like with any other disease or illness, we need to treat that. It's not a simple matter of act right. The individual is going to need some help. They're going to need some assistance, and they're going to need some treatment to improve, and improvement is possible. So yes, the first goal is to inform the families, to help families understand what's going on with the disease of addiction. And we also want to help them understand what the recovery process looks like. This is a complex disease, and it does affect many different, what's the word I'm looking for, areas of a person's life. It's a multifaceted problem, and so we need a multifaceted solution. And without it being able to understand that, it's going to seem confusing and cumbersome. In fact, what comes across to the families often when they're not educated about the disease and the solution is it looks like the addict is continuing to still be selfish. Now they're devoting their time into this recovery process instead of coming back and fully devoting all of their time, energy, and attention to the family unit. So I want families to understand that there is a process to recovery. It's not, we don't flip a switch and everything's okay. There's a process that has to take place, and we want them to be able to see that process and understand what's going on. And then I think finally, we want to help families understand the family role. You know, the reality is that when there's an addicted member of a household, it is going to alter and change the entire family. Maybe it's a silly analogy, but the analogy I like to use is if I go outside and I build a bonfire and we all go outside and we stand around it and we get warm around the fire, later when we all go back inside, we're all going to smell like smoke. All of us are going to have that smell of smoke on us, but I'm the only one that actually built the fire, right? Addiction kind of works that way. It begins to affect the family in a number of different ways. It begins to alter the thoughts, the hopes, the dreams, even the logic of how the family functions over time. And so getting sober isn't just about the addict getting better. It's about the entire family beginning to recover from this rather devastating and tragic event that's happened in their life. So we want to address every phase of it. We want to address it all if we can.
I like that analogy. That really kind of put it into perspective for me.
Great, good.
So tell me currently, what is the format for our family program?
Well, you know, obviously COVID has affected things and we've had to adapt. In the past, our family programs were all live programs. We ask everyone to come into our offices and we sat for 2.5 days and we all sat together in a big room and we talked about what was going on. Obviously, that is not practical or safe these days. So we've moved to this Zoom platform, and it's been a big learning curve for me. I'm not a technology guy, but we've discovered that it's actually very, very effective. It's a really powerful tool. So what we do is we do our family programs over a 2-day span. Each day consists of two 2-hour sessions. We take a nice long break between the sessions. We kind of try to give people a chance to get up and move away from their screens and walk around and eat some lunch and relax for a minute. Those sessions are rather intense though. We have a lot of information to compress in a short period of time. So for 4 2-hour sessions, we're going to download information as quickly as we can, while of course still working to make sure that we're delivering it in a receivable message. The first day is focused almost entirely on disease concept and some of the behavioral aspects of the disease. As we move into the second day, we start getting into some of the more advanced dynamics, like how the disease has affected the individual's relationship with themselves, with others, with a sense of higher power in the world, and how it's affected the family members in a similar fashion. And then finally, we talk about enabling codependency. We try to get into some healthy communication stuff. We just try to focus on some things to help the family begin to heal and to make this a healthy, nurturing environment that everybody can get better in.
Excellent, good information. So do you have to have a loved one who's currently in treatment at a Bradford facility to participate?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. In fact, we would highly encourage anyone who wants to participate in this program to come on board. We don't charge for the program. There's no charge for it. All it requires is that you pull up a laptop or a smartphone and you sign in with us. You know, what we discovered, Chris, is the information we're delivering in the family program is, well, first of all, it is highly valuable to folks who have loved ones in treatment. It is also incredibly valuable, though, to someone who has a family member who's still struggling in addiction. It's going to give them a great insight into the disease and help them understand perhaps what the most appropriate way to be responding to their loved one and to their loved one's disease is. What I've discovered over the last several years is this information is also valuable for the general public. I've worked delivering the same information to to corporations so that they can understand the problem inside their operations a little bit better. I've worked with emergency responders, with military, with law enforcement. We teach this information in school systems at times. We live in a world where addiction is a reality. I don't think there are too many people in the world anymore that are not either personally struggling with addiction issues or they have a loved one, close friend who is. Everywhere I go, people, when people talk to me, the first thing they say is, well, I've got my cousin's a struggling addict, or my wife has dealt with this for years. And so as many people as we can educate about the disease of addiction and the solutions that are available, I think the better off we are. I made a long answer out of that. The quick answer is absolutely, we would welcome anyone who wants to attend this program.
Excellent, excellent. And then, so how many participants on average do you usually have in a session?
I'm not sure if I've got that exact number. It's kind of been a moving target since we moved to a video platform. We have as many as 40, 45 participants during some of our sessions, and then we've had fewer than 10 and others. I would think the average is probably running somewhere in the mid-20s right now.
So you could say it's a small group format. It's not too
yes.
large, and the people who are there participating in the program do get an opportunity to interact with you via the video feeds and ask questions.
And Chris, as you know, we've purposefully done that. We've added more program dates so we could spread our audience out a little bit more. We absolutely want there to be some personal connection there. When I'm presenting information, it's often presented in a fairly fast fashion. We're trying to deliver as much information as we can in a very compressed period of time. So we're always going to pause after each individual session, and we're going to have some time for question and answer and some interaction, and let people ask questions that may pertain a little more specifically to their personal situation. We're going to make as much time for that as we can.
Excellent. So that actually leads me to my next question. What if I wanted to do the family program more than once? Are you open to people participating several times?
Absolutely. Again, that's actually a rather common theme, Chris. We frequently have people repeat the program, and for a number of reasons. Sometimes we'll have people do the program back to back. And again, and I don't want to scare anyone away from the program. I really think that we do a very good job of presenting this information in a kind of a user-friendly, understandable fashion. But it is a lot of information. And some of it is rather profound to the individuals that are experiencing this information for the first time. It can be a lot to digest. I've had family program participants tell me before that it takes a couple of days to kind of unpack the information after the program. So frequently we have people ask, well, can I come back and go back through it again? I'd like to hear it all one more time. And I'm told that when they come back through a second time that it even hits a greater depth for them, that they absorb even more the second time through. So we would absolutely encourage them to come back through. In fact, our policy is to make the family program available to any of our participants from this point forward. I've had people come back a year later and say, can I go back through the family program? Sometimes it's because my loved one is struggling again, but it seems like more often than not, it's because they'll say, well, my loved one's doing great, but I'm still struggling. I'm still experiencing a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. I'm still kind of walking around on eggshells, afraid that my loved one's going to relapse, and I need to come back in and reabsorb some of these principles and help me continue to get better. So love to have you come back if you'd like.
Excellent. So, this is one thing that I think separates Bradford a little bit from other programs that are out there. We do a lot to support not only the individual with their treatment while they're in an inpatient setting or an outpatient setting, but we have programs like the family program to support the individuals in their life. And we have continuing care. But what other programs or supportive programs are out there, Tim, for the families if they're struggling? They have someone in their household that's struggling with addiction. What other resources could you direct them to find?
Sure, sure. I wish there were more, but there are a number. One of the first things I would say is education is our friend in this. Understanding the disease, understanding the solution is incredibly important for families. Families dealing with addiction in their home often just feel like they don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn. They don't know what to do next. They don't know how they should or should not be responding to their loved one. So the first thing we want to do is we want to begin to educate. Programs like Bradford's Family Program, I think we do an excellent job of that. Beyond that, there's some incredible books out there. I think one book I would want to plug right now, I hope it's okay that I do, is there's a book called Codependent No More, written by Melanie Beatty. I believe it's the quintessential textbook on codependency and understanding addiction in the family and how it affects the loved ones. Would highly recommend that. I am a big fan of counseling, of therapy. I think anytime we have an addicted member of a household, that it's important not just for that individual to seek treatment and counseling for themselves, but the family as well. There's trauma involved here. Families have absolutely experienced great deals of trauma. Essentially watching someone you love deteriorate in front of you day after day, week after week, and sometimes months and years and even decades takes a tremendous toll on an individual. And so one of the first things I want to recommend to someone is seek out a therapist. Give yourself an outlet to begin working through some of that pain and that grief and the loss that you've experienced. I've also noticed that addiction takes a very large toll on relationships, particularly when there is a child or a young adult in addiction. The parents often find themselves struggling in their own relationship. What was previously a healthy, loving, caring marriage begins to struggle under the strain of this. No one exactly knows what to do, and everybody's trying to figure it out, and everyone's desperate to find a solution. And so sometimes we get at odds with each other in that process, and it begins to break apart those primary relationships in our lives. So marriage counseling, family counseling, individual counseling, I think are all incredibly important in this process. One other resource I would absolutely want to mention as well are our 12-step fellowships. In particular, an organization called Al-Anon. Al-Anon is very similar to Alcoholics Anonymous, only it's not for alcoholics, it's for the loved ones of alcoholics. It's also appropriate for the loved ones of addicts as well. Al-Anon is a unique organization, and it presents some unique resources for the family members struggling with addiction. When folks go to Al-Anon, what happens is they are surrounded with other people that understand the situation. And they're also surrounded by other people who not only understand the situation, but people who are not as emotionally connected to their situation. And that allows you to have kind of objective feedback from other people about what's going on with you. Al-Anon affords us the opportunity to begin working on ourselves and healing ourselves. What Al-Anon does is it gives you a way to get the smell of smoke off. The smoke from the campfire I talked about away. It gives us a wonderful means to start getting that smell of smoke off of ourselves. And honestly, Chris, I have a lot of family members say, well, why do I have to go to meetings? I'm not the addict. Why would you expect me to go to meetings? And my answer that's always, well, you don't. You don't have to go to meetings. No one's making you go to meetings. But if you find that your life seems to be kind of entrenched with fear, confusion, resentment, anger, right? Al-Anon might be a solution for you. Al-Anon will help us begin to heal from all of those things and get better.
Excellent advice. So Tim, you are the teacher and the facilitator of our family program that we offer to our families that have loved ones at Warrior, at Madison, and then anyone that's in one of our outpatient programs in any of our several regional offices. And if I understand this right, you've had kind of a long history with Bradford, and this isn't the first time that you've driven the family program. Can you just explain a little bit about your background and your relationship with Bradford for the audience?
Absolutely. I would love to. Bradford is family to me. I started to work for Bradford. I can tell you the date, February 27th of 2006. I started to work for Bradford as a night shift, what we call PSA, Patient Services Assistant. My job was to be there in case somebody woke up struggling or having a hard time. My job was to be there and to help them get through those periods. Over the course of the next several years, I migrated from the night shift to the evening shift to the day shift. I spent about 5 years working in the cottages on our Warrior facility, working directly with patients. And then I was given an amazing opportunity to start working with a family program. And I took over the family program for about 5 years. After that, I had an opportunity to go down to Auburn, Opelika and serve as the administrator for a program Bradford has down there called the Reprieve. Wish we had a whole lot of time to talk about the Reprieve. It's an amazing facility. They do amazing work down there. I worked with the Reprieve for a couple of years, and since then my role with Bradford has changed a little bit. I'm not a Bradford employee these days. I'm a consultant / contractor. And I cannot tell you in that capacity how thrilled I am that Bradford has allowed me to continue to be part of what's happening there. These days, you guys have graciously allowed me to come back and to facilitate the family program again. I also spend a couple of days a week on the Warrior facility with the opportunity to get in front of the patients and share a little bit of what I've learned over the years. It's family to me, and I'm very passionate about the work I do. I think one of the important things that affects how I feel about my work is that February 27th of 2006 was not my first trip to Bradford. My first trip to Bradford came on February 24th of 2005 when I checked myself in as a patient. For some reason, that's hitting me very emotionally right now. I had spent 25 years in active addiction. My first use was at 11 years old. I got sober at age 37. And in that time, I drank, swallowed, smoked, snorted, and shot up my dope. I've died of overdoses and been revived. I've been homeless on a couple of occasions, and I've been to jail more times than I really want to talk about. In the end, I was desperate for a solution. I was desperate to the point that life wasn't worth living anymore. My last night of active addiction, I cocked a loaded pistol, I stuck the barrel in my mouth, and I prayed for the strength to pull the trigger. I was out of rope, so to speak. I was out of solutions. I had tried everything I could think of to fix this problem myself. And I had failed over and over and over again. And in those last moments, something clicked in my head. I set the pistol down and I picked up the phone call. I picked up the phone, I made a phone call, and I asked a friend to take me to a treatment center. And he drove me an hour to Bradford Healthcare Services in Warrior. And I have not had to use drugs or alcohol since then. I think there are a lot of components that go into a successful recovery. But absolutely, I would say Bradford is an enormous part of why I'm alive today.
Wow. That's a pretty powerful statement right there. And I think you kind of embodied a lot of what we like to say. There is hope ahead, no matter how bad you think the situation is for yourself or your loved one. Please reach out. There is hope ahead. Yep, there's always hope. Wow. Well, Tim, I thank you for your time. That was a great overview. We do have the ability to take questions. If anyone would like to ask Tim anything, you can use the chat function in this webinar or the Q&A function, which is at the bottom of your screen. We'll leave the webinar open for just a few minutes to see if any questions do come through. I'm really glad to have had the opportunity to give an overview of this great program and let everyone know that it is available, whether or not you are currently working with a family member that's in treatment or somebody that is potentially in need of treatment. So Marilyn's asking, who do I contact to sign up? Marilyn, if you visit bradfordhealth.com, you can find all the information on the family program. Leslie Bierman is our coordinator extraordinaire for the family program. Tim, do you have the number off the top of your head? Because I failed to write it down before we started.
Not off the top of my head, but I can get it to you pretty quickly here if you want me to pull it up.
Marilyn said she found it on online, so that's awesome. Yeah, and Leslie's email is there too. If you just have questions about the program or want to know what the next dates are, we do have some of the dates that are scheduled under events on bradfordhealth.com. Connie Woods wanted to say hi, Tim.
Hi, Connie. I miss you. Good to hear from you.
And then another question came through, how do you enroll? Just reach out to Leslie and she will get the information to you. You'll find a date that works best for your schedule, and then she can get you the information for the webinar sign on.
Very simple process, by the way. I think we've all had to migrate to this digital format. And for some of us older folks, it's been a little intimidating. And one of the things that's really jumped out at me, as we've set this up, is the simplicity. It's really, really easy to get registered. It's really easy to get signed on and participate. If you have a smartphone or a laptop, I promise you, this is an easy thing to do.
Absolutely. So there's a comment coming from the audience about, recently losing a family member to addiction within the last 6 months. And the impact of how much the grief process of guilt can just envelop a family. And can you mention that process of guilt for parents or other loved ones with an addict?
Well, I think the first thing I need to say is that, I've not been through that experience. I haven't lost a child to this thing. And as a parent, I honestly can't imagine anything that would be more difficult.
I agree.
I can tell you that I have lost friends to this disease, and the grief is real, and we have to work through it. We can't force ourselves through that process. We have to just kind of walk through it and learn to adapt to life without our loved one. I would also tell you that you're not alone. Unfortunately, tragically, there are a lot of parents out there that have gone through the same experience. I have a very close friend who's lost one of her children to the disease of addiction. I've watched her struggles over the years, and what I've seen really help her a lot is reaching out to others, connecting to other people, allowing herself to grieve, allowing herself to talk about it openly, to express it to other people, the pain that she's experiencing. And I think maybe one of the greatest things I've seen her do is she's organized a group of parents like herself who've had the same experience, and they've formed a support group, and it seems to really, really help.
Yeah, and organizations like Al-Anon are a great way to start those connections with people. Yes. There's online resources, and then of course, the family program is a way to connect with other individuals that are in a similar boat. A question came in about the age of participation. This is a really good one, Tim. Should a young child participate in the family program if they have a parent in treatment?
That is a good question. And there's not an entirely simple answer. I'm embarrassed right now. Leslie handles the registration, and I don't remember what our official age is that we officially say. I think we recommend 13 or 14 and up for the family program. The issue with that, though, is that honestly, I've worked with some 16 and 17-year-olds that didn't really have the emotional maturity to handle the information being delivered. I've also had some 10 and 11-year-olds come in that handled it very, very well. So
Mm-hmm.
my suggestion to the families is, you're going to need to make a personal evaluation of where you feel like your young person is at. Where you feel like they're at in terms of their pain and their anger and their grief and their necessity for
Mm-hmm.
answers. But also, we're going to kind of rely on parents to make a determination about that individual's emotional ability to process this.
Right on. And the official literature says 14 and up, but again, that's going to be very dependent upon your individual child and what you think they can and can't handle. The comment that followed that question is that she hasn't told her children about their father's addiction yet, and they're 11 and 13. Do you have any advice about that situation? Is it something she should start discussing?
Again, every family is different, and
Mhm.
every parental and child relationship different. Every child's different. So I don't know that there's just one simple answer for that. All I feel like I can do right here is I can share my own experience. Being a recovering person, my son was 5 years old when I got sober.
Mm.
Uh, when I went off to treatment, we didn't say, Daddy's going off for drug and alcohol treatment. Daddy's gone to the hospital. He's sick and he's going to be in the hospital for a little while, but he's going to get better, is what my kids were told. Since coming out of treatment, I've always tried to keep it at levels that, at his age he could understand and comprehend. But I've never tried to hide this from my son. He has grown up around my recovery. He's grown up watching my recovery, and we've had very honest conversation all the way through. I think the reality is that our kids know more than we think they do. Kids are incredibly observant, and look, they're as smart as we are. They just don't have as much information yet.
Mhm.
And so typically when we're talking about, children in the families, they are quite aware that something is not right.
Right.
Something is wrong. Consciously or subconsciously, they know something is not right with mommy or daddy. They just don't know what. And so I feel like being able to have some honest communication with them and help them understand the problem is actually very therapeutic and very relieving to that child. Well, now they know it's not just things are wrong. There's a reason things are wrong, and we're working to make it better. It's going to get better. I hear sometimes addicts come into treatment and they say, well, my son's only 5 or my son's only 6. He doesn't know anything's going on. And honestly, I cringe a little bit when I hear that, because no, he does. He just doesn't know what yet.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I've done with my son, my wife and I are both in recovery. We're a blended family. We both brought children into this that were exposed to our addictions early in their lives. And what we have found has been very successful with our kids is therapy at a very early age. I am a big, big, big fan of what's called play. Your kid goes in and they work with a therapist, and in our case, the therapist literally would get down on the ground and play with Hot Wheels and cars, and the kid doesn't even really know that they're in therapy. But what it does is it gives them a very safe outlet to start talking about their feelings and their confusions and their frustrations. It's kind of a safe vehicle for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that that was a very cohesive answer.
No, it was
But
really good. I think the other thing is there are resources like Al-Anon for kids. So Alateen and a lot of programs are also available. The follow-up comment that viewer added was that she feels she has hidden it from her children in order to keep them from losing any respect for their father. But now she's wondering, is she enabling his addiction by doing so? So I guess in some regard, possibly.
possibly, it's tricky.
It
All
is
of this is
tricky.
very tricky, Chris. We can talk in kind of blanket terms, but the reality is this is an incredibly complex problem, and every family group is
Mhm.
different, and the dynamics are different. The thing I heard there that's just jumped out of my head, though, was she said, I've been keeping this secret. And, I was taught early in my recovery that we're basically as sick as our secrets. And one of the goals of recovery is to stop that. It's
Mhm.
to stop having these back channel talks. It's to stop triangulating. Let's put all the cards out on the table. Let's all get honest. Let's look at what's going on here and let's move forward in a healthy, productive manner. I think my simple answer to that question would be, I would, if it were my child, I would want them to be as informed as possible as the process proceeds. A 5-year-old may not be able to grasp all the complexities of what's going on, but to every degree possible, we want to make them aware of what's happening and try to avoid those secrets.
Yeah, that's great advice. I have a viewer asking, how do you believe COVID-19 has impacted addiction in the family?
Uh,
That's another
well,
big one.
yeah, it is. And I think COVID-19 has had a very devastating effect to everyone. I started saying this country, but it's worldwide now, isn't it? I think that there are a lot of Americans right now that are struggling with some level of mental health issues as a result of the isolation, the fear, the confusion, the unknown of what's going on around us. And I think that effect has been doubly so in families of addiction. Before COVID-19 began, it felt like all the headlines we were seeing were about the opioid pandemic. Our country was in this great uproar and great concern, and very rightfully so, about the proliferation of opioid use and the number of overdoses that were occurring. I believe in 2019, 70,000 Americans died of an opioid overdose.
Mm, wow.
COVID-19 hit and all the headlines shift. The problem did not, though. We gained a new problem. We certainly gained a new problem, but the opioid crisis didn't go away. And in fact, what it did was it put those same individuals who were struggling with opioid crisis or opioid dependency and addiction, it shoved them deeper into isolation, and it compounded the problem. I can assure you that those numbers have been rising during COVID, not declining. The other problem is it's shut off our interaction as people. So now that individual struggling with addiction is even more shut off from the world, and there are less people with the capacity or the ability to see what's going on and to reach out to help. Family units have been closed off now, and so literally there is nowhere for this problem to vent, and family members have much fewer resources now to reach out in their community and ask for help themselves. So yeah, no, I mean, COVID has obviously been a big problem. What's odd is while we're seeing the numbers increase in terms of the number of people struggling with addiction, we've actually seen some decrease in the number of people seeking solution. And I truly believe it's that isolation. It's the lack of focus on the problem. It's the lack of ability to reach out and ask for help in the same way that they used to. My big message here would be to anyone who is struggling with addiction, to anyone who has a family member struggling in addiction, help is still available. In fact, it's more crucial now than perhaps it's ever been that we can move the individual into a safe, secure, structured environment specifically designed to deal with the problem. Isolation is a killer for addicts and for their families. So there are resources out there. Fortunately, those who are in recovery have, like us, discovered this big, brand new, bold world of of Zoom. And what's interesting is while I think something has been lost in those face-to-face 12-step meetings where we all got together and we hugged each other and we saw each other's expressions clearly and in person. Something has been lost in that, but something's also been gained. Now that meetings have gone virtual, the reality is that someone in recovery can find a meeting literally any time of the day or night, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's a meeting happening somewhere in the world that you can dial into. I think when we come out of COVID, we're going to see this really neat hybrid thing happen. I think we're going to see people making a rush back into their sit down face-to-face meetings. But I think we've discovered this amazing tool in recovery that we can reach out all over the world and help each other now.
Absolutely.
There are resources.
I have heard people from other countries participating in meetings together, which has brought a new dynamic that we didn't
Absolutely.
have before. And then, as far as Bradford goes, a lot of our outpatient programs, our individual therapy, our group therapy, some of the intensive outpatient partial hospitalization programs are online via a Zoom platform, a secure platform, of course. And another thing to mention, our inpatient facilities do have the ability to rapid test our new admissions. So for someone who may be using that as an excuse or maybe is really concerned about the potential of contracting COVID-19, we do have that ability.
Good.
So, Tim, again, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for all you do for the family program. Certainly, you do an amazing job, and we just want to open it up and let more people know that this is available, and this is a way for you to help your loved one with their struggle and get them into the recovery that they so deserve.
Great. Thank you, Chris. It's an honor and a privilege to get to do this work, and thank you for your support. And again, I encourage everybody to come see us.
Sounds great. Everybody have a great weekend. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.